The United Kingdom, Germany, and France are currently preparing to send troops, warships, and aircraft to that region in the Arctic. All because of this piece of frozen land. But what few people know is that this military tension didn't start now. Europe had been preparing for months while the United States was unaware. And what's happening right now in Greenland could change NATO forever. Keep watching, because we're going to explain every detail. To fully understand what's happening now, we need to go back a few months. Greenland. September 2025. Denmark organizes the largest military exercise in the region's history. More than 550 soldiers from France, Germany, Sweden, Norway all together, and the United States. Well, they weren't invited, that's right. The most powerful NATO ally was left out, and do you want to know why? Europe already saw it coming. Donald Trump. Donald Trump doesn't hide his ambitions about Greenland. Since 2019, when he proposed buying the island from Denmark, the American president made his interest in this Arctic territory clear.
The concept came up, and I said it's certainly interesting strategically.
At the time, the Danish prime minister called the idea absurd. Trump canceled a state visit and called her unpleasant. The subject seemed to have died there, but it didn't. In December 2024, still as president-elect, Trump brought the issue back up. This time, the tone was completely different. It was no longer about buying, it was about necessity, national security.
We're going to hear Donald Trump talk about Greenland, and this time he didn't rule out the use of military forces, even though he said he wouldn't use force for Canada, but for Greenland, which today is a territory of Denmark, saying that the place is important for American national security.
We need Greenland for national security.
A matter of American survival. And in January 2026, the world understood that Trump was serious. January 3rd, early morning, Caracas, Venezuela. American special forces invade Venezuelan territory and capture President Nicolas Maduro. Operation Absolute Resolution involved more than 150 aircraft in preemptive strikes. Maduro was pulled from bed and brought to New York. The international community was in shock, but the shock was just beginning. Because a few days after Maduro's capture, Trump started talking about Greenland again, and this time there was no more diplomacy in his words. In a meeting with oil industry executives, the president was direct. Let's do something about Greenland, one way or another, one way or another. Let that sentence echo for a moment. What is it?
We need that because if you take a look outside of Greenland right now, there are Russian destroyers, there are Chinese destroyers, and even bigger, there are Russian submarines all over the place. We can't let Russia or China occupy Greenland, which they'll do if we don't act. So we are going to be doing something with Greenland, either the nice way or the more difficult way.
But one way or the other?
We'll have Greenland.
Are you okay?
The White House issued an official statement. The acquisition of Greenland is a national security priority for the United States. And then came the part that froze European capitals. Using the United States Armed Forces is always an option, available to the Commander-in-Chief, always an option. Stephen Miller, the White House Deputy Chief of Staff, was even clearer. No one is going to fight militarily against the United States for the future of Greenland. We are a superpower, and we are going to act like a superpower. Trump repeated his argument several times. If the United States doesn't control Greenland, China or Russia will take it over. According to him, Russian and Chinese ships are all along the coast of Greenland. At this moment, the island cannot fall into the wrong hands. It's a matter of hemispheric security, but there's a problem with that argument. The Nordic countries say that no Russian or Chinese military activity has been detected on the coast of Greenland in recent years. Russian military presence is restricted to the Russian part of the Arctic. The threat that Donald Trump describes simply does not exist in the way he presents it.
First, this means America is a Danish country.
Denmark reacted with a force that few expected. Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen issued the most serious warning. If the United States attacks another NATO country militarily, everything stops for that, including our NATO. It includes the security that has been guaranteed since the end of World War II. For the first time in history, Danish intelligence has classified the United States as a security risk. And then Denmark did something even more drastic. It reaffirmed a 1952 military directive, an order that had been forgotten for decades. The directive says that the Danish armed forces must immediately resist any invasion, immediately, without waiting for specific political orders, without consulting the government, without asking for authorization. If foreign troops try to take Greenland by force, Danish soldiers are ordered to open fire immediately. This order was reaffirmed by the authorities in January 2026. This isn't rhetoric, it's active military protocol. Europe realized that something unprecedented was happening for the first time since the creation of NATO. A member of the alliance was threatening another member with military force. Article 5, the Collective Defense Clause, which says that an attack against one is an attack against all, turned into an impossible paradox. If the United States attacks Denmark, NATO must defend Denmark, but as a military alliance, can it defend itself from its own leader? On January 6, 2026, 8 European countries issued a joint statement. France, Germany, Italy, Poland, Spain, the United Kingdom, Portugal, and Denmark. A statement with a crystal-clear message. It is up to Denmark and Greenland, and only them, to decide on matters concerning Denmark and Greenland. The statement invoked the principles of the United Nations Charter, sovereignty, territorial integrity, and the inviolability of borders. It was a direct message to Washington. We will not allow this. And it was exactly at this moment that the United Kingdom and Germany began secret talks. The goal, to prepare the deployment of military forces to Greenland. Not to attack, but to create a shield to make any American invasion so complicated, so expensive, so politically explosive that Trump would be forced to back down. The plans include British patrol ships, German reconnaissance aircraft, French troops on rotation, and advanced surveillance systems adapted for the Arctic climate. All under the NATO flag, all officially to protect the region from Russian and Chinese threats. But everyone knows what the real purpose is.
Greenland, that's the red line. So I consider that if they invade Greenland, if something happens in Greenland, they're not even systemic adversaries anymore. They become systemics.
And then came the statement that changed everything. General Nicolas Richoux, retired general of the French army, gave an interview. His words were chosen with extreme care. If America invades Greenland, they stop being our adversaries and become our enemies. Adversaries and enemies. There's a huge difference between those words. Adversaries compete, enemies fight. We investigated without Ingobernaveland.
Os Unidos cruzarem essa linha, a aliança transatlântica que durou 75 anos terminará. Não com tratado rasgado, mas com sangue no gelo ártico.
Europe is being serious. Denmark is investing $6.3 billion in Arctic defense by 2033, 16 more F-35 fighter jets, 5 ships military icebreakers, and a new headquarters in Nuuk, Greenland's capital. long-range surveillance drones, coastal radars, the capability to launch combat drones from the F-35C. Denmark is turning Greenland into an Arctic fortress, and it's not doing it alone. Right now, as you watch this video, British, German, and French diplomats are in closed meetings, planning logistics, setting timelines, calculating how many soldiers, how many ships, how many aircraft. The European Union is even discussing economic sanctions against American companies like Meta, Google, Microsoft, and American banks. And the most extreme option of all is on the table, expelling American military forces from bases in Europe. Bases that have existed for decades, bases that have been the backbone of European defense since the Cold War. Trump ordered special forces commanders to draw up plans to invade Greenland. Sources inside the Pentagon confirm that some high-ranking military commanders are resisting. They argue that an invasion would be illegal, would not have the support of Congress, and would destroy NATO. But Stephen Miller, Trump's chief advisor, is the biggest supporter of the operation, and Trump rarely ignores Miller. Secretary of State Marco Rubio tried to calm things down, saying they are considering buying Greenland, not invading it. But his words sounded empty after the White House confirmed that all options are on the table, all options, including the Greenland, the world's largest island, has just 57,000 residents, about the size of a small town. And those 57,000 Greenlanders made their position very clear. 85% reject becoming Americans. All 5 political parties in Greenland issued a joint statement. We don't want to be Americans. We don't want to be Danes. We want to be Greenlanders. The future of our country should be decided by ourselves, without pressure, without interference from other countries. But their voices are being ignored because this dispute was never really about the people of Greenland. It was about rare minerals used in smartphones, missiles, and military technology, about Arctic sea routes, about geological control, about military dominance in a world where the old rules are being torn apart. What started with a military exercise in September has turned into NATO's biggest crisis since its founding. The alliance that kept Europe peaceful for 75 years is now close to collapsing. Not because of an external threat, but because of an internal threat, the alliance's own leader. Europe is preparing for a scenario that was unthinkable a week ago, defending one NATO member against another NATO member. British, German, and French troops ready to position themselves between American soldiers and Danish territory. A military confrontation between allies, between Western democracies, on the Arctic ice. And now I want to know your opinion. Do you think Europe should send troops to Greenland, or will that only make things worse? Leave your answer in the comments. If you found this video important, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel to follow the next developments of this crisis. See you in the next video.